Hey, it's Andy Willis. I'm the managing broker for our Suwanee office.
I just wanted to spend a few minutes to talk to you about the seller's property disclosure statement that goes with the GAR forms and the contracts. The actual form number is F50, and I want to really stress the importance of how we fill this out and the things that you need to do on it and the things that your seller needs to do as they complete it. So first off, if you'll notice at the top of the form, there's an exhibit blank. Always put an exhibit number in there, and I always encourage people to look at how many exhibits they're going to have in a contract and know which one they're going to label what when they complete the contract. But make sure that exhibit number is also on page 6 of the contract when you fill out the contract itself. So let's say this is exhibit A. I would go ahead and put an A in that first field, and then we go down into the contract, the form itself, and you'll see the very first paragraph identifies what property it is, and you'd enter an address for the property. In the field just before that, you're going to put an offer date. The offer date on the actual F20 contract might be today, June the 22nd. And so we'd fill that in, and then we'd kind of work through it. Now, one thing I want to talk about, I'm filling this out, one thing I want to mention is this talks about with a sale agreement of an offer date of June the 22nd. Remember, that field may not be filled in when you actually do the form. You're going to have a seller's property disclosure statement, and the exhibit field and the date of the offer, you may not be able to put those in initially because you're going to do this form when you list the property. And you're going to have your sellers fill that out, and it might be 3 or 4 days or 2 or 3 weeks before you have an offer in which you'll need to present this to someone. So you'll have a date and an exhibit field that you want to make sure it's filled in, but it may not be done when you initially do the form. So as you work through it, it gives you instructions to the seller as far as completing this statement. And the big thing is they just need to answer everything honestly, and always make sure they're the ones that fill this form out. Don't you touch this form as far as filling any of the fields out. You want to make sure it's in their handwriting and that they've completed the form completely. All the questions are pretty self-explanatory, and if you look, for instance, under number 4, you'll see it talks about structural items in different things. So the first question is, has there been any settling or moving or cracking or breaking of the foundation of the structure? Obviously it's a yes or no. If you happen to put a yes in there, then in the explanation field you need to explain that. So make sure that you would go in there and you say, I can't even type on this form because it's designed for the seller to fill it out in person. So, but make sure they explain any questions that they answer yes to about any issues, so to put any buyers at ease and to have honest answers on there. And it's very critical that this form's completely filled out and that you look through it, and if you have any questions after you review it, you go back and ask the sellers, but let them complete it and their honest answers. And if you'll notice, every page has seller's initials and a date on it for them to complete. So they would initial each page so it shows that they actually did each page. That's how important all of this is. So just have them go through the form, let them take their time doing it, answer everything as honestly as they possibly can, because this becomes a very important piece of the contract as people look at it. Home inspectors will want to see it probably when a buyer comes in and has the home inspected, what have you. So you go through there. Now, if you run out of room for explaining items, or if there's something that they feel like they need to mention that was not covered in there somewhere, you've got a page on the back for additional explanations, anything like that you need. And then a little checklist that shows what's included. Now look at the top of the paragraph above these check boxes, and it talks about fixtures. Make sure you only mark the fixtures that are staying with the property. The top of mine comes to TV mount brackets that you see in the center of the second column there. Seems to be a big debate with agents and sellers and buyers now as to the brackets that are mounting all of these televisions, and if the brackets stay. So it's little things like that you want to be real clear of. Just make sure that you go through and mark anything that remains with the property, because that's going to be the form that holds everybody's feet to the fire. And then, if there's any kind of clarification you need to do about any items, if there's 2 refrigerators or anything like that you might need. And then you can also list, well, I'm leaving the refrigerator, but the ice maker doesn't work, if there's an item that needs repair or something like that. So you don't put an item on there that everyone thinks is working and fully serviceable. you want to disclose that now so they can't come back to your seller later and say, well, it was working. You see, it shows on the disclosure that it was there and it was working. List the things that are faulty and as far as items needing repair, anything like that. So work your way through the entire contract, the form itself, and then you'll see a section for buyer signatures and a section for seller signatures. So make sure you go through and complete this with and then your sellers are going to sign it. You'd have this on file, so you could send it to anyone. I've seen some agents that'll leave them and store them in different places where they can access them, to email them, or people can download them. So there's plenty of different ways to do that, but make sure it's signed by your sellers. And then as you complete the purchase and sell agreement and send this over, again, go back to the top of it and make sure you put an exhibit number and an offer date in there, and then get the buyers to sign the bottom of that and include it in your contract. So I hope that helps. Like I said, the key points of this is accuracy. Don't you touch that form and fill out a single block on it. Let those sellers do it.